like the well, I'd like to thank St. Clair Hospital for putting on another presentation to answer all their changes that they did for us since the last meeting. Denise is going to come up and she's going to kind of say how we're going to run the meeting. We are under a little bit of a time constraint. We have 1 hour set for this meeting because then we roll into our regular township meeting. So here's Denise Fitzgerald, our manager.
Welcome, everybody. Just so that everyone is aware, we are under a slight time constraint, but we do want to allow everyone time to get up and speak. The last meeting, a lot of issues that were brought to the board's attention and St. Clair Hospital's attention was traffic, and I will turn that over to St. Clair Hospital, and Dr. Gasted, he will address that as well. And you will notice that they did address a lot of the concerns that the residents did have. The only thing that I will ask is that if you do come up to speak, if you will sign in, and that you do limit your comments, your concerns to a 3-minute minimum, maximum, so that you can allow other people to address their issues as well. Dr. Gibson?
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming. I didn't have the pleasure of being here last time we had a meeting. I was away that time, and but I heard about it, and what happened was a lot of the things that you all brought up were things, quite honestly, that we hadn't thought about to how to correct them. So in the interim time between the meeting we had before and this one, we were fortunate, I was fortunate that I knew Mr. Calabria, and when I found out that he was on the commission, I said, can we talk about this and go over some of these things? Then I found out, which I actually have known for a lot of years, but didn't know what he did for a living, that Mr. Calabria was a PennDOT traffic engineer, so he understood this really well. So Dave and I were fortunate to be able to meet a couple times. We went over all the things that we could do to correct some of the concerns that you had, not correct concerns, but to address the concerns. We don't want to have a lot of traffic going through Birdland either. If I lived there, I'd feel exactly the same way. I live in Mount Lebanon, I live on Washington Road, and there's a lot of traffic. You know, I'm used to that. So we don't want to increase it for anybody. And we wanted to figure out a way that we can not increase it. And I think we've done that with Mr. Clabria's help, and met with Denise and young Dave, and went over all this, and we've gone over each item, which was John Schrott. Mr. Schrott, our architect, will go over with you. We have drawings to show you what we're going to do. I think, honestly, I think you'll be very pleased. I hope you are. We try to address everything to get the traffic to go out toward Bower Hill and to go into Seeger, our employees to go into Seeger. We'll have an exit out there, and we can go over all this tonight. So what we'd like to do, again, thank you for coming. Thank Mr. Clavier for all his expertise, because we didn't have the expertise to do all that really without his help. And he understood the street, and he understood the community. And then finally, Mr. Schrott will present it, and we'll ask you to come up and have your comments. If you have questions, there's a whole group of us here. Each of us has different areas of expertise, and we'll answer the questions best we can. Is that okay with everybody? Hey, come on.
Thanks, Dr. Yates. My name is John Schrott. I work for ICAM Architects, and we do a lot of work for the hospital. Keeping you in suspense by having the boards turn back so that you're not focused on that, so you focus on me to start with. So there are several issues that we want to talk to you about. We're not going to spend the time talking about the building as a whole and the aesthetic of the building, because we all looked at that the last time. We really want to focus on the issues that you brought up during our January 17th meeting. So this drawing shows the corner of Bower Hill and Wren that we presented at the January 17th meeting, and then the revisions for tonight's meeting. So I'll try and maybe move that mic a little bit. For those of you that don't remember, we're realigning Wren Drive so that it aligns with Furwood to create a four-way intersection, moving the traffic light to that location. Wren Drive then, back on January 17th, was one way in towards Birdland and two ways out. There was a straight and a left turn and then a right turn. based on your comments and some further discussion, we now have one turn in from Bower Hill, but then coming out of Wren Drive, you can either go straight, or there's a defined right turn and a defined left turn. So there's 3 lanes coming out from Birdland onto Bower Hill. In order to do that, we've reduced a little bit the valet lot that is across the street. So there's going to be valet parking for this building. We're also aware that the valets, and it's only the valets that would be crossing Wren Drive to get to the valet lot. There is a drop-off underneath the building for patients to come. Can be dropped off, can go down. There's 2 levels of parking underneath the building, 184 cars. Or there will be a valet that will be able to take the vehicle across the street to the valet lot. The crosswalks are going to be both colored and textured so that the car will sense it and you will be able to see it very vividly. So that's what's reflected here. The valet crossing point to get the vehicles, a pedestrian crossing point at the intersection of Wren and Bower Hill, and then pedestrian crossing points for the in and the out of the drop-off that goes underneath the building. One of the other things is that we're creating a sidewalk along the entire length of the St. Clair property on both sides of the street. So it will be against the outpatient center and then the valet lot through the extent of St. Clair's property. That's one item. One of the primary issues and concerns is the 2 curb cuts that come out from the existing, once again, the January 17th drawing and today's drawing. This is the lower circle to St. Clair. I'm sure you're all familiar with it because we all use that facility. And then access to the existing parking garage. There's access to surface lot and now the new employee garage. And then there's a curb cut. So there's 2 curb cuts off of Wren Drive. One that goes down to the lower circle in the garage, and then one goes to that upper lot kind of beside Voyevich's. Now everybody knows that right now coming out from that garage onto Wren, there is a no right turn sign. Not everybody obeys that sign.
No, really?
Yes, true statement, right?
Is that true, officer? I know you would.
They're closed at night. I only work nights.
So, how do we reinforce and really prevent people from making that right turn coming out of the garage? Now keep in mind that you're coming up, so the red dash here is the existing condition. And you essentially come up and it's almost a 90-degree intersection. What we're proposing is a really dramatic 45-degree so that physically, and we've tested this with the software, a car cannot make that turn without going over the curb, cross all lanes of traffic into the service station. Discouraging everyone from making a right-hand turn coming out of that garage. The same with the curb cut up near Voyevich's. We're making that as well. So there will be, once again, the signage, but physically, it's going to prevent people from making that turn. The other concern was how do we stop or discourage people down on Seeger coming off Scrubgrass and Swallow Hill from cutting through the neighborhood. We have limited control of what we can do there. But what we are proposing, because these are Google Earth images of down as you're coming off of Scrubgrass over up Raven. What we're proposing is that there would be a new sign, big blue H with an arrow directing people up the hill to St. Clair Hospital, along with a sign that says local traffic only. So that's our suggestion to place at that location, and then when you're coming from Carnegie, that you would have that same situation. There's the stop sign at the corner of Swallow Hill and Seeger, to have that same sign so that people know to go straight up Seeger to get to St. Clair Hospital, and that making that turn onto Raven is really for local traffic. Those are the mitigating effects that we're suggesting be put in place to control extraneous traffic coming through Birdland associated with the hospital. I think we open it up with people's questions.
A little bit about the road interchange.
So, and everyone might not be aware, inside the existing garage at St. Clair, there is a egress point onto Seeger. So people in the garage that are desirous to get onto Seeger to either go towards Carnegie or to Mount Lebanon can go out that way. So there is 2 egress points. And, you know, we're looking at how we encourage anybody that's headed in that direction to egress the garage that way as well. The timing of the signals, both at the intersection of Bower Hill and Seeger, and the relocated signal at the corner of Wren and Bower Hill, will be retimed and sequenced to help control all of that.
Chuck and I were just saying that A, B, and C in the garage, starting with A down to the lower level of Seeger, our employees are required to park in A, B, and C. So we have a new employee garage, but we also have employees who have been there more than 15 years who get parking in the garage. That's before we had a second garage. This is something, it's a benefit they've had for a long time. So we're going to require all of our employees to exit out onto Seeger instead of coming up through the garage and going out onto Wren, just so you know. So that's a lot of, that was young lady's suggestion to make our employees work. So that should work out well. They can turn right or left and go whichever direction they want to go. So.
That was definitely one of the employees.
Yeah, and so in the third lane, one second, the third lane that John talked about, the right turn lane, was again, Clair's suggestion with his experience as a traffic engineer. What that's going to do, of course, is it takes the amount of cars to be in 2 lanes and now divides them into 3 so it doesn't back up as far. So you'll be able to go out to Bower Hill Road on Wren, and we'll have 3 lanes, a left turn straight, because now we'll have an intersection right across from us, and a right turn lane. So it's going to make it much easier to get up toward the road instead of traffic backing up all the way.
Question.
If anyone has any questions, could you please come up to the podium and sign your name?
No, the new parking garage is the one that don't come up to where like John was saying.
It only has one.
But yeah, but you'll have to go to the left when you come up there. You'll have to come up toward Bower Hill. That'll be a very difficult, almost impossible turn to get to once we get this curb cut. Okay. Thanks, John.
First of all, thank you for this, because this is great, and I don't know why you haven't done that a long time ago. Okay, local traffic coming up with the Birdland, that's terrific. This is good also, but it doesn't work, because currently people coming out of this exit do go into the gas station and turn around and go back to Birdland. The owner of the gas station said that last meeting that we were here.
He's right
They
there.
come out here and they
The owner of
go
the gas station's right here.
back. I'm sorry?
The owner of the gas station's right
Okay,
here.
am I right? Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna make more than rent this property to do that. Because if they wanna go that way, they're gonna
Well,
go
yeah,
that way.
sir, obviously we can. My name is Chuck DeBello. I'm the Vice President of Facilities and Construction for St. Clair Hospital. Obviously, we can't stop people from making illegal turns, but we're doing what we
You're
feel.
trying.
Right.
I agree, I
Right.
agree. Okay, and this, every time out the car, pulls in here, and the valet gets in the car, he pulls. And by the way, you don't have a straight arrow across here. You do have one that turns back at Birdland, though. I noticed that. Okay. So you're not stopping traffic from going.
Let me address that. So currently, everybody that's going to be parking in our new addition to the building that's going to be connected to the hospital, everybody that's parking here is a patient.
Right.
There won't be any employees parking there. The reason we only have 84 parking spots underneath,
Right.
we know, and we have the valet. Those fill up. And a patient, you as a patient come into the building and need a parking spot, you will need to turn that way to get into our other parking. That's why we cannot limit that to only a left turn.
If I come in here, I can't go straight and get through this.
No, the straight brings you underneath the building into our other parking. That's not the way it's designed. The design is, the current design is, go ahead, John.
Yeah, okay.
So you know how we're blessed with topography here in western Pennsylvania, and how you have to go down that hill significantly. We looked to see how we could design a separate lane to get down to that lower level, and we could not make that work.
But you do have a lane that can go off the third.
But that has to go away so that the building is connected to support
the
the
car
clinical
pulls in
needs.
here, the valet gets in the car, the valet comes out here and goes across this area, parks. He runs back across the street, gets keys from the patient coming out, runs back across the street, gets in the car, drives over here, comes up here, and turns into this area. For every car that pulls in here, there are 5 crossings of North Road. You're going to have an awful lot of crossing there. And today, just this week, coming up here, my wife and I came up here a couple of times. We came up here and we're in the lane here to turn right. We had a car that came out of this parking lot from back here, came up here and turned completely right in front of us. So your patients are confused today. Now you're going to give them 3 lanes to try to figure out. You're going to give them a crosswalk to try to watch. You're going to give them cars coming in and out of here and a car coming out of the valet lot. You say this is just 44 cars, but what valet lot do you know that they just park into the spaces and they don't double or triple park?
Well, and we're working with the valet group to try and understand how we can best do this. There's technology out there so that when I'm discharged, the valet, who potentially could have a booth over here, will get a text to say deliver that car.
Okay, so you're going to eliminate a couple.
Right.
Okay.
So we're looking at as many options as we can to reduce that concern of the valet moving across the street, because there would be no need for a patient to move across that street.
Right.
What time would this be going on? The valet being used?
I have one other thing.
Sure.
I wouldn't want to criticize all this without an answer. You currently have the answer. You have an entrance off of Bower Hill Road that comes into your main hospital today. But you don't want your ambulatory patients in here. You want them in this building. So bring this over here. Have your entrance on this side. Build your building over here as close as you want. Put your entrance here. Let your patients come in this way. Put in something that goes underneath here to get to your parking garage and eliminate this off of North Run completely. This corridor was put here by Scott Township for the convenience of the people that live in Birdland. It's not for the convenience of St. Clair Hospital. That's why it's a narrow area that it is. So put it back on Bower Hill Road. But you don't want to do that because you're going to back up Bower Hill Road and you're going to have problems here with this stretch. So you're going to give them to us. And that's all I have to say.
I like what you have to say.
Does anybody else want to come up and speak? Come up and sign in, please.
Well, I also want to thank you for the hard work that you've been doing, and you've been listening, and I appreciate that. One of the things I'd like to ask too is, since we have local traffic only at the bottom of Raven Drive, is it possible to put local traffic only at the top of where you enter into Birdland from Wren?
Turn around, face the township.
That's why I'm looking at you.
I would think
There's
that
no
was something
problem.
we could present to the
Yeah.
committee.
Is that
Go back-
something that we could do
Back
as a
beyond,
reinforcement?
No problem.
I also agree with Mr. Murphy as far as the amount of traffic that you're having at the mouth of that. That's an awful lot. You're talking about people that are not well, and then when they come out of there, or they're troubled. You know, hospitals have troubled people. They're upset. They've been through a lot. Now they're coming through this. They got 4 lanes of traffic to try to navigate. That's a lot to ask of people, and I know that you're in the position to worry about your patients. Again, why are you targeting one area? You have another area. You have the other side. You have Seeger. You have Bower Hill. Let's, like I said, spread the wealth a little bit.
and we're trying to push the traffic from those lower 3 levels of the garage out onto Cedar.
Absolutely. I'm just concerned, like I said, for your patients too, because, you know, we've all been in those circumstances where someone has had a surgery or an accident has occurred, God forbid, and you're not thinking properly or clearly. Okay, so when we're looking at this type of traffic pattern, that's what I'm concerned about. How much confusion is going to go on? Okay? How much trouble is there going to be with people bumping heads or colliding? You have an awful lot of stuff going on right here. You have valets, you have people going across streets. And let's not forget, you have pedestrian crossings up here. You actually have people that are taking the buses that are going home in the evenings, especially around 5, 6 o'clock. They're getting off those buses, and now that we don't have Port Authority transit down into the neighborhood, they're walking through this, okay? Again, a lot to navigate for people that are driving, that are upset, and now you're dealing with people that are coming off the transportation system from town that are tired, maybe not quite with it enough. I'm telling you, that's an awful lot. I'm not criticizing what you've done. I'm bringing it to your attention, and that is, I think, a tremendous amount. And public safety is involved here. You know, I'm concerned about our Mount Lebanon residents, our Scott Township residents, and our hospital, our patients. So that's what I'm looking at, okay? And yes, I am a resident. I do live on Raven Drive, so I'm dealing with the traffic. But I understand you're doing what you can about that. All I'm suggesting is we need to do something with the amount of traffic here and spread it, okay? You need to have more people have access to Bower Hill Road so it's a straight shot, so they can go home safely. Does that all make sense to everybody, or?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
I could just say something before.
Go ahead.
Okay, just to actually respond on both of them. For one thing, the crosswalk only crosses 2 lanes of traffic. 2 lanes of traffic. Well, you have 3 lanes right now, existing. That's what we did, and the right turn lane is up in front of the driveway coming out of the valet parking. That was something to get rid of additional right turns. They could probably go right turn on red. That could be moving pretty easily to get rid of the no backups. That's the idea. So there shouldn't be any backups near the crosswalk. Now you're saying worrying about people. They just explained they have sidewalk, which we don't have now, all the way along the property of St. Clair Hospital. And as he explained, our architect explained for them, as far as the topography, you cannot put this building anywhere else. Really, that was part of the problem. We talked about, can they come in at a different driveway or something else? So they're kind of stuck with the different levels, and that's why I said we really hammered them for all that last meeting. You know how long we were here, and they didn't back down on anything that we asked them to do. I think they did it here.
But they were asked to put it off of North Ren and put it on to Bower Hill or Cedar, and I don't see that proposal.
They never agreed to do that. And the architects, he did say, I never thought of putting, but that was probably impossible to come off of Bible Road.
Why is it impossible?
Well, it is. Things are impossible when you're building a building. But
They
here-
have the entrance there now. What do you mean it's
Well,
impossible?
think about this. If they did make that entrance there, just think of the backup, no traffic signal to get in there into that driveway. What do you think the people that want to go to Scrubgrass, just think about it.
That corridor is designed for the people in Birdland. It's not
I
designed for
understand that.
St. Clair Hospital.
Now, let me listen to what I said. If we took that main entrance out of Birdland, out off of North Rend, and put it on Bar Hill Road, just think of the congestion. Without a traffic signal, what's going to happen?
It's not my problem.
Well,
I come out of
it's
Birdland.
going to be your problem.
It's not your
because-
problem either.
No,
You're
listen,
a township commissioner.
I understand. I'm trying to make a point here. As a traffic engineers, they're going to take their own shortcut. If I want to go down Seegert to go up Swallow Hill, I'm not going to go through that traffic. I'm going to cut through Birdland. Birdland would become a cut through just from the traffic that's happening on Bar Hill Road.
It's a dangerous cut through. They
Then that's
speed
what-
through
well,
that
I'm
neighborhood.
just
Nobody
saying.
patrols it. I
What?
live on it.
All right, well, my son lives on it. The idea is, what we're gonna do, we're working with the police to put on Raven, a speed hump.
Okay. We like more speed humps than just one. I mean, they come all the way up through the neighborhood, from the bottom right there, all the way up North Rend, Raven, Cardinal. It's crazy,
Yeah. Well-
and they fly. I got hit backing out of my driveway with my daughter in the back
Okay, but
seat.
here's another thing. How long has this been going on?
We've been here 15 years.
Okay, but I'm saying, my
That's
son,
on you guys too, not just the hospital.
I understand it. My son has just got on there. He's doing more for the little
we're
district
not-
board
Yes,
right
he
now.
is, and that's fine.
That's what we're saying. We're gonna work on the speed humps, both coming up Meadowlark for the park and coming up Raven. That has already been addressed.
But give the county the problem on the county road and don't give it to us, it's our township.
Well, here's the thing.
the other piece.
Good.
Okay.
Let's try to keep your comments up at the front.
Yeah, you know what, I don't want to take up your time. Let's go. Let's go, 3 minutes. We're gonna.
I agree with everything that you've done so far, but I want something to be addressed prior to you break ground. I want the contractors and all the trades that are coming in, the companies that they work for, to be aware they are not allowed to cut through our roads.
Well, there's no doubt.
No, there is not.
No, there isn't. Let me just say this, let me address it. I am in control of the construction that goes on in this building. I dictate to the contractors or anybody who works on our site what they do.
All right.
And I said this at the last meeting, I am very community-minded. I've done this for 30 years. And I've done buildings in other austere environments where people don't want to go, and I've done them in high-level, intense environments too. I will tell and I will dictate to those contractors, and believe me, if they do that, and if they egress through any space that we tell them they can, they will no longer be working.
Okay,
So you have my word, I'm saying on camera and to everybody,
that's fine.
that they will not go through your neighborhood.
I mean, because of this, I think our police force does a wonderful job, and I don't think they should be given a burden to take care of situations that you can't control. But it sounds like you do
I can
have-
control them.
No, you do have them under control.
I do.
And I think that these signs should go up prior to you starting construction.
And then again, the signs, obviously, those are a suggestion by us
No,
that we're giving to your municipality leadership.
Well, I'll make
And it
sure.
sounds like that they're willing to look at that and address it. And we'll buy the signs, we'll put them up.
Put the
But
signs
we
up.
just want to make sure that we go through the proper channels when we do things like that. on your
And then like
municipality.
you're saying, you're gonna do it with your employees that are already there now, you're gonna divert them out, and I'm just thinking about prior to the finished
That's
product.
a great point, sir, and it's definitely, we will make sure that that goes.
All right, thank you.
Come up to the podium if you want to speak.
Just did a,
I just have a general question. I'm sorry.
Okay, sign
I've
it.
not been here before. So I was just thinking on earless. So this building that's going up, is it going to be specifically for special treatment center or cancer center, or is it just an extension of your hospital?
It is in addition to the hospital, but it's for outpatient services only. I'm sorry, I didn't bring all that information, but on the REN drive entry, diagnostic imaging, MRI, CT scan, general radiology, a cafe, physical therapy. The next floor up is all surgery and endoscopy, and then the top floor is medical offices.
So you don't have to go to Oxford Drive anymore.
Yes, we want you to go to both Oxford Drive and the hospital.
Better parking in Oxford.
In addition to what he said, they're not really bringing a lot more patients to the hospital. It's technically, they're updating their hospital, they're moving their facilities from one side of the building to the other. The main thing is, yes, they're moving a lot of the traffic flow onto North Run, but the patient count is not very much higher than what it currently is today.
My question concerns your employees. If you're pushing are you going to have more employees now in that area?
There will be an add to employees,
Okay.
obviously, to run the building, but again, we discussed on how we're going to control that.
Okay, so you're controlling and you're bringing the traffic onto Seagram. I live on Grouse, which is at the bottom of Raven, so I use that intersection quite a bit to go anywhere, right, quite a bit. I have to tell you that the people who are coming down from that egress from the hospital, I've watched them. They come to the bottom of the hill, they turn right, they don't even go, there's a stop sign there. You know, I realize this has to do with, is this a township issue? But if you're putting more people coming out there, we're getting to a dangerous situation.
What?
Because they don't stop. They want to go home.
But again, ma'am,
I understand you only have so much control.
Correct.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that it presents a bigger problem than we already have because you're adding employees that are using that exit. So by using that exit, you've got more folks who are tired at the end of their shift, they want to go home, I get it. But it's a pretty big stop sign, and they don't stop.
I just wanted to commend you on trying to think through making adjustments. The sidewalk is critical on both sides of Wren Drive. Again, from what Jennifer mentioned with everyone taking the bus. One thing I wanted to ask is if you could have your valet, I'm sorry, not the valet, the courtesy van that provides transportation for the patients not to drive through our neighborhood. Unless, of course, they're delivering a patient. I have multiple times followed, not intentionally, but followed a van through our neighborhood, and they're not dropping or picking up anyone. So I don't know if they are circulating around to the other side of the hospital, but I think that sends a message to other people also that, oh, well, if the hospital courtesy van can drive through, so can we.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. That should not be occurring.
It happens all the time.
Let me just say, again, I wouldn't know until you told me, and I know now.
Yeah.
So we'll address that. We will definitely address that issue. Obviously, like you said, if there's a patient that lives in your community, that's a necessary need. There shouldn't be any cut-throughs of your neighborhood for shortcuts on employees of ours.
I've notified the hospital about this. Have you? I just wanted to bring it to attention.
Well, you can get my card afterwards, and if it happens again, you notify me.
Okay.
Leave it that simple.
Okay.
You can sign. We say who we are. I had to drop my daughter. She's concert at the middle school tonight. My name's Kathy Jamison, 1376 Raven Drive.
Good people talking here, please, silence.
I'm Kathy Jamison, 1376 Raven Drive. Few points. Okay, so fees, taxes, revenues, money. Does Scott get, like, is the hospital paying for use of this? Because that's, I'm assuming Scott's going to be maintaining the road since it is in Scott. So is there any revenue from the hospital coming to Scott for this?
I can answer that a little bit.
Fees, whatever, taxes.
We are working out a mutual agreement with Mount Lebanon because the building is literally half in Scott Township half in Mount Lebanon. What we are trying to work out right now is shared taxes with our LST tax, where we would split that down the middle. Half would go to Mount Lebanon.
What is LST?
Local services tax. But due to the fact that the hospital is a not-for-profit, they are tax exempt, so to speak. We wouldn't be collecting taxes in that respect. But the LST, we are working with Mount Lebanon to share those taxes. We would be getting revenue in that for that.
There's more impervious surface, or just in general with the hospital, just constantly struggling over the years. Seeing trouble over the years. I was born and raised on Raven Drive. Life took a circle on back. But, you know, the Salvini plan, the sewer, the water, the storm drainage, all having to be redone. But I don't think that the architects or the engineers took into account the increased toilets, the increased everything, the loss of impervious surface, just the domino effect on the infrastructure. And please get a long-time warranty, not a 10-year warranty, but a long-time warranty on your engineers, because they need to be planning for this. And I don't think they've done that well in the past.
Actually, we have our engineers.
We're still, I mean, the hospital has their own engineer, so, but the township is reviewing it for compliance with its ordinances. So stormwater is being addressed. Domestic wastewater is being addressed. So it is being addressed, and it's being addressed to current local standards, which comply with federal standards for MS4 compliance. So,
are they taking into account, though, the increased sewage drainage?
Yes.
The loss of more loss of impervious surface?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
This is our municipal engineer.
That's the driving force behind this entire evaluation, is the increase in impervious surface, is the increase in sewage flows. All of that is being considered and has to be addressed. They will not get approval until that's addressed, which they're working on. So there have been many questions, many discussions, and many reviews so far. And it must be addressed with any development. So it's not just germane to this.
Yeah.
The township holds everyone to this standard.
One time coming through the intersection of Seagar, Raven, and Scrubgrass, I saw the man that lives at the corner of Raven and Scrubgrass pushing with a big broom the water into the sewer so it didn't, I presume, flood his yard or house.
Well, we can hold them to the standards today.
That run there used to have a constant amount of water, unless it had been dry for weeks, you know, unless there was no rain. There used to be a nice, now if it rains, there's a lot of water. No rain, 2 days later, there's nothing.
Are you talking about Carmen Roberta, the big stone house right on the corner?
Yeah. That's, I guess.
Yeah, well, there is a state project to add another a sewer down there. And they've been working with him. He did have some problems.
But I'm just saying,
yes.
Overall, we have, over the years, a big growing problem with it.
I'm a commissioner, and I was on the planning commission for years, and that's one thing Scott Township does. I mean, we have our problems with flooding, but most of them are from old developments, and most of the new things we bring in, they really are held to a very high standard.
But they're putting pressure on the older development.
Well, but it'll be, we just got a thing from Emily today, and she was looking at, she's already examining the flow, and she sent a letter to us about the flow, and they're really looking at it.
Yeah, like Salvini was a problem from the storm drainage up in Mount Lebanon. It comes downhill.
Well, the stormwater management requirements that everyone is held to, they have evolved over the last 30 years from really nothing, where people just built things and just dumped the water over the hill, to now they're very strict standards. Okay. So these standards, and they're not just, they're Scott Township regulations, there's also regulations from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. There's also federal regulations that go along with that. So those are all tied in and all knitted into Scott's local township regulations. So all new developments. Now, if everything was redeveloped in Scott, we could address every flooding problem. We could address, I mean, the South Hills is plagued with it. But as Mr. Wells said, everything that comes in, that is evaluated right off of the bat. It's not particular to this hospital. We look at the stormwater,
Well,
we look at the wastewater, and they have to satisfy the regulations before they move forward.
I'm a bit jaded from past experience. I know would be nice to hear on future development.
Pardon me?
I mean, no would be a good word for future development. That would solve the problem. You know,
Well,
you know.
There's certain things.
Thank God for our
there's-
steep inclines.
Well,
Otherwise
there's
we
certain
wouldn't have
things
any
that
trees
you
left.
can't, I don't want to give a legal opinion, but, you know, you have a steep slope, spot hazard regulation on steep slopes, which
Yeah.
a lot of the green areas now, they cannot be disturbed.
Right,
And
right.
they've kept that, and it's been challenged several times, and the board has always upheld that.
Thank you.
And they have
Thank you
not,
for
they have
upholding
not
that.
bent on that. In the 20 years that I've been reviewing out here,
Okay.
they've never bent on it. And
Okay.
it's stopped, you would have seen a lot more development out here had that ordinance not been in place, because it would have moved the dirt.
Yeah, we've had to litigate this, John Vogel, do a lot of work with the planning commission for the township. But we've litigated this to the trial in the appellate courts on the steep slope ordinance several times.
Going all the way to the state Supreme
Yeah, Supreme
Court,
Court number one.
and in front of Judge James, and the steep slope ordinance was withheld. I held up, and they were told they could not develop because there was
Thank you.
some
Thank
other.
you for
So
doing that.
it's not that we're not
Gives us
addressing it,
some-
it is very much on everybody's mind. And they'll tell you, John, and that every time when I was on the planning commission, that's the first thing I asked. What are we doing to the steep slope? I don't want that violated.
Yeah.
When we redid the ordinances, the first thing I asked, has there been one word change to that? Because if it was one word changed, then they could take it back to the state Supreme Court because we changed it, and it was not done.
Yeah.
Good.
We take that very, very, I'm not saying you
Thank
won't
you.
have problems, but we're taking it very, very seriously.
Yeah, we've actually, we did change to our zoning ordinance, and eventually we'll be doing, in a couple months, changes to our subdivision land development ordinance. But we're structuring the language to make sure that, really, I think going beyond the state requirements to make sure that our steep slope ordinance is airtight.
Thank you. A couple other things real quick. Loved having the stores up there. Really sad to see the whole Walgreens come thing, and then the parking lot, and then it was really nice to be able to have that. It helped my independence as a child, being able to not have to cross Bower Hill, but I could go up, get things, you know, it was just a great community child experience. The ball field's gone, the stores are gone. We're kind of losing what made our neighborhood exceptionally nice, what made it more community-like, and we're just getting more sprawl in return, more traffic headaches. I sit through Seagar twice to get up that light, taking my daughter to her cello lessons on Wednesday.
I don't want to cut you short. We still have we
Well,
only
yeah,
have
I
15
was
more
trying
minutes.
to-
I can follow, if you want to leave your email there, I could follow up with you with more of the sewer information. And
I'm good on that. No,
Okay.
I wanted to get through what I wanted to, you know, I don't know if the parking lot could go, I mean, 44 spaces if they can't go into the already existing underground parking lot. But all that, because now you're gonna have traffic to, like it used to be when the stores were here, okay, we had to put up with that. But now you're coming from two directions. And like you said, these people are coming out of having, you know, some of them are driving. They're not being driven. So the valet gets their car, but then they're on their own after that, you know, so they might still be partially under anesthesia.
You know what, I don't think anybody would get in your car. There's doctors over there, they would not allow somebody to.
There's no difference in what happens now. Right now, they're still doing the same operation, turning on the Bower Hill Road, you know, coming out of surgeries
And whether you go through with this or not, if we could have a right turn on red, that would make our lives a whole lot easier. Okay. That was necessary. Thank you.
I'm on you. Yeah. Start writing tickets.
I have been a resident of Scott Township my entire life. My aunt and uncle were the first house. I have been a resident of Scott Township my entire life. My aunt and uncle were the first house in Berlin. Contingencies were made, and for the most part, I will say, St. Clair Hospital has upheld all of it. Thank you. One thing that a lot of people are not thinking about, you have very good intentions, so do you. Don't anybody start. This diagram of you're going to make them make a left turn out of the hospital. No matter how you're going to do that, MJ is going to suffer, because take into consideration how many people in Birdland work for the hospital. And every person that does, including people that I am related to that have lived on North Run Drive for 25 years, they say, why am I going to go to Bower Hill Road to have to turn around to come back home? And they're not the only ones. I mean, there's, you employ quite a bit of Birdland. So part of it is Birdland's fault. Walk to work and you don't have that problem. That was part of the reason people wanted to be employed at St. Clair Hospital. I can walk to work, but they don't.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot better until the first time you do it.
Those people, like the doctor was saying, they could come out at Seeger and then just come up
Well, they've
ramp.
been trying for years.
Well, they can do that.
To have people come out at Seeger, but nobody wants to go down and have to come through the plant. And from the time we were little, that was always a cut through. And now that our parents are the ones going into St. Clair Hospital for testing or whatever, everybody that grew up around here cuts through Birdland to get to the hospital to take their parents or to go see.
Now, let me, if I can comment on that. The only thing that I can suggest as being a commissioner for Birdland is, talk with Officer Starker, with the police department. If that gets around, if he's unable to, with the officer's help, if they write a couple tickets or they, give warnings that in the future, if this happens again, and they keep up on it, maybe that's the only way that we'd be able to control that, with a little bit more police presence, with the hospital police trying to do their best to enforce it.
And we're trying, but the reality is, I can remember looking at local traffic only signs from 70 on. And, sooner or later, they're down and everybody's doing the same thing they were doing. So I think they made a good effort here, and I do understand everybody's concern about the pedestrians or the people with the valet pulling out. We grew up here and we're getting gray haired and we're getting old and we don't have the same reaction time that we did when we were 16. But we're putting North Rend directly across from Farwood. I have seen Farwood come flying over to North Rend, especially high school, and all that. So, and I'm back and forth quite a bit late at night, so I start early. And I will tell you that I cannot imagine what this is going to do, because St. Clair Hospital employees going over to the valet lot, even like at the end of an 11 o'clock shift, they don't look at the lights. They don't care. They walk through the car. So if they're doing that now, I can hardly wait till it's 4 lanes.
Well, man, we won't have any employees doing that any longer. They'll be parking in our garage. And the only people that are going to be parking in that valet lot are valets. And they'll be valeting cars through there. There won't be any employees. There won't be any employees doing valet. So the thought that what's occurring now is all through a plan to move folks out because we're building our new garage in the back for employees. That is going to be complete here soon. That whole function is going away.
Okay, but I mean, part of it is community education. and part of it is employee education.
Absolutely.
Okay, so.
Thank you. If we can get the next person, we really only have about 7 more minutes for questions.
If the plan is implemented, I was wondering, is there any plans to monitor the design to see if it's working the way it's supposed to? Once you're up, you're constructed, the roads are in, is there any monitoring going on to see everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing?
We constantly, let me just say this, we will constantly monitor and make sure that everything is going appropriately. And we do that now existing with our parking situation. Parking's underneath. So all this deals with parking, right? It deals with where our employees park, where our patients park, making sure that they're doing it appropriate in the proper way. So all those things are going to be monitored from our standpoint to make sure that it's addressed and it's working properly.
Would there be any traffic studies done before or after to see if traffic is increasing or anything like that?
We accomplished.
Right.
You know,
Chuck, done already.
what we did at PennDOT, we kept the traffic engineer on board to monitor such a thing. But this is our traffic engineer, Mike Mudrick, and he just, go ahead.
And we were just talking about, you were asking, can this be monitored? I know what you're saying. I was saying, hey, if we're designing these features to have people not turning left into the neighborhood, we can ask these folks here as part of the conditions of approval to have a long-term or periodic update and go back out and collect that data again. We can go back out after it opens, and if we find people are doing things illegally, we get back with these gentlemen, we're saying we could look at enforcement, we could look at making additional changes to try to get the people to, you know, you said, someone said earlier, you could build this and put a sign up and then people could ignore it. Well, if you start putting more enforcement up, and then if we're finding some of these design tweaks are pretty drastic. I mean, there's always things that we can, you know, just because it's built, you don't want to go back out and rip something up, but we can put more things on after.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to put all kinds of crazy stuff out there until you see that there's a problem.
Right.
You're not looking for a problem until you find it.
Right, that's why I think it should be monitored.
Right, and I think that's something, I mean, it's up to these gentlemen, but they already do some monitoring on their site. They know what's going on. I think this would just be a small extension of what they're already looking at.
My other question was, it seems like one of the only solutions would be is to hire a Scott Township police officer during peak times when employees are getting off to ensure that all the traffic goes out to Barrow Hill, and then to make sure that people cross.
Well, that's a great point. Sir, we have, again, security's under me. I'm telling you everything's under me here, but anything facility related falls under my jurisdiction. So we already have addressed the fact that we have our own internal folks that we would necessarily, when this gets kicked off, we're going to have them monitoring everything for our employees that are exiting and making sure they're relying on that. If it comes down to it, you know, we could look at a Scott Township officer. So that's not, you know, something that we feel we're going to necessarily have to do. We have our own internal folks. But believe me, we're going to make sure that this is addressed in the beginning and make sure this is flowing properly and seeing where we have any issues. And I know, and I want to make sure that Mike and I have had conversations regarding his station, and we are definitely aware of the community environment there, and especially the folks that have businesses on there, with like Dr. Voyevich and Mike, to make sure that we're addressing their concerns too. So a lot of the things that you brought up, if people start moving and going through his garage lot, we're going to stop them.
Okay. I have one question. I'm the commissioner of the second ward. I'm also the finance chair for Scott Township. When you guys bought the property, there was an $8 million assessed value on it before they tore everything down. We're going to move our road. You're going to put your building on where the road is. What does Scott Township get out of this? I mean, where is the benefit as a good neighbor? Is there a payment in lieu of taxes? I mean, a couple months ago, Dr. Urisi, we came to you guys for an AED machine. We were told no. Now you're asking us to move our road. Yeah, we had to buy them.
I'm not sure who you asked.
Frank, could you tell them who we asked? We asked for an AED machine for the township and for the pool. We had to go buy them. What I'm asking you now is what advantage of this, of moving our road, putting a hospital on our road, losing the $8 million. I mean, when we lose $8 million of assessed value, these people, you're putting a $50 million improvement up there. We lose $8 million of assessed value. what is there to advantage to the township? So that, you know, if we lose $8 million of assessed value, we gotta raise the taxes on all these people.
Thank you.
Where do we go?
Yes.
Maybe you can tell me, because
I apologize about the AED machine, because we provided it for the people, so I don't know who you asked, and I do feel bad about that.
Maybe we can follow up now.
Yeah, please, because we provided them. I know, I personally take them to the police department.
Denise called, I called, and Frank called, and we all got the same answer. We don't do that anymore. Well, I'm asking you now, is what we're gonna do in the payment of lieu of taxes, so that.
We're not, yeah, I understand. I can't look at you on my side, I'm sorry.
You don't have to look at me, look at them, because they're the ones who tax
Everybody's taxes are going up.
If you look at the property records, I own a house on Lindsay Drive, so I pay taxes in Scott Township too. So my son lives there, so we had to help get the house. But we pay the taxes. We're a nonprofit, so to be fair, I mean, and first of all, that property might have been assessed at $8 million, but we didn't pay $8 million for that property. You can look up the property.
No, but before they tore it, when the shopping center was there was $8 million of assessed value.
But the shopping center didn't make out. I mean, Walgreens tore the shopping center down.
The shopping center made out very well. It's just Walgreens came in with a big offer for it, and they couldn't turn it down. And the guy said, you know what, I might as well take my money and run. What I'm asking you, is there any good neighbor thing that you're going to be doing for Scott Township? Well, so that all these people have to...
Bill, I know that...
I hope you are a good neighbor.
Yeah, well, I think what's happening is, I know part of it, we're having discussions with Mount Lebanon as far as what the division goes between, of the taxes between the two. Yes. And to the extent there's anything that's taxable, you know, we're going to be going after that. So I'm sure that's going to be part of a longer term discussion among the parties on that, so.
Thank you. I mean, that's exactly right. We have to discuss it. We have to discuss it with your commissioners and Denise. But right now, I'm not prepared to answer the question because that decision hasn't been made. Okay. But we understand.
But a lot of times after something's built, nobody wants to make any decision. So I'd like you to make a decision prior to, once you get in there, we can't tell you to move it. You can't tow a trailer and move it out of there.
Find out.
Free health care for everybody that lives in Birdland.
But you have to walk over.
I'll walk. There you go. She'll pull me.
We're not charged for parking, we have to walk.
We have to pay for that road too.
No, they'll pay for the road.
They're going to pay for the road.
We have to pay for the maintenance on the road, or they're going to pay for the maintenance?
Currently, ma'am, it's a Scott Township road.
Exactly.
We're not changing it.
You're paying for it now.
We're not paying that for it. That's more.
Currently, Scott Township maintains the road. We're moving the road, and we're paying for that move. Scott Township maintains the road.
Okay, so that's great for right now. Talk to me as it goes down the lane, and you guys got to pay for curb work, for construction.
And we're stuck with that bill now, but I just would like to know how we're going to make up the, as finance chair, when we go to do the budget, I have to figure out where we're going to make this money up at.
Whiteboard traffic.
Just in case anybody is interested in seeing the plans and actually taking a copy home so you could look at it at your leisure, we did make copies for you if you'd like to come in and take a copy home with you. Thank you for coming.
When will this be voted on?
Right now.
They're actually going to Planning Commission next month. That will be the first Wednesday in May. May 2nd. So there'll be...
You're welcome to attend that meeting also, so you can hear. Yeah. It's May 2nd at 7 o'clock, right, Denise? Here?
Yeah.
Right here, right where you're sitting. I can't guarantee the same seat, but it's the same spot.
So. Is that prior to vote? Or?
Yeah, that'll be prior. They have to give a yay or a nay, and they're a recommending body, and then we'll vote on it.
It's split because this is like half of what this is. And if you do split phase, but if you do one advanced with a small, you'll see